I would also say that I think that although awards I think are exceptional, I think that it's important to deliver the message regardless if you get an award or not, because the content and the conversation is what needs to be further discussed and further pushed into mainstream.
I mean, I guess it's my turn. I don't quite have anything specific to follow up on that. I think, there's always things that you can look at through things in a different way, right? There's on the one hand, you saw a lot of the acting winners this year were people portraying queer characters, and I think that was significant. I think they said 3 of the 4. And then the other argument is that those 3 were all straight people playing queer characters, which is then another debate about visibility of LGBTQ in the film industry and actors being able to self-identify and still be able to get roles of both straight and gay characters. And that's a larger industry issue. But it definitely was something, it's like you could look at it either way. It's great that those characters were rewarded in a way, and it wasn't the archetype characters that maybe of the 90s that we normally saw, which were queer characters. But I just think it's interesting how it's part of this evolution process where it's messy.
Yeah, and I think also when you talk about the Academy Awards in particular, a lot of the work that they do is to assure future people who are going to finance films that a movie like that can win awards or get recognition. And so even if not every queer movie is Moonlight or is Brokeback Mountain, that means the success of those films means that maybe something that on a smaller budget does get financed and can afford to be, with a smaller budget, be a little bit more risky and be a bit more challenging, and not maybe isn't an Academy Award kind of film, or maybe the Academy's changing that. We don't know what that definition is going to mean in 5 years. So I think that the awards do function in a really helpful way in terms of that word we all use all the time, which is visibility. I think that Moonlight winning in particular was a huge sea change. And even in just a few years since, I've seen movies that feel inspired by Moonlight, or maybe wouldn't have existed, in terms of the money that they got, their budget, without that film's success. So I think that while it's always a complicated conversation we have between art and awards, the awards, just because of the realities of the industry, do serve a really useful purpose in that.
And that's really a good point, because every time there's a Moonlight or any of the films this year that have been in contention, the 3 that you mentioned, the fact is that every time there's one of those in the conversation, it makes some studio executive less scared to greenlight something. Because before it was just, Sundance or nothing. And now you have, especially with streaming outlets like Netflix, there are places that filmmakers that are more, not marginalized, but in more risky content can have a place to go. And I think that makes a huge difference, because then they're seen by more people. That means more people become accepting in the mainstream audiences. And I think that's a big change.
Well, I think for Tom and I, we may look at a film and it may be incredible, but we can't control kind of the outcome of the nominations, obviously, and control kind of how it works into the world. But what we have done over the last 3 or 4 years is really making sure that the membership is diverse and it looks like this room, and looks like every other room that you go into. It looks like the world. And I think the more that you continue to do that, the more you continue to add value back into the room, because now you have different voices, different perspectives, and different visions. Speaking on it, looking at our show last year, wow, it feels like last year. Our show that just happened, where it was very diverse films, and you're even talking about the fact that a Moonlight could even win. Sort of.
That wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have happened in 5 years.
It wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And so it's we can't necessarily control, unfortunately, kind of what gets nominated, how it gets nominated, but what we have done is really been able to, a big push as a mandate from our board, to be able to have people that look like us in the room, and then that leads to a Moonlight, which then leads to an executive saying, yes, we should make that type of film.
We always say that you can't control the movies that are made or how people will vote, but you can. The one thing we can control is who's voting, and that's what we've at least taken a proactive stance of trying to